Hello, welcome in to Chi Time here on UK Health Radio with me, Clara Apollo. I'm a Qigong teacher and a lover of sound healing and dance medicine, and this show is all about your personal energy, your vitality, and how you can gather it naturally and how you can also help yourself really relax to a point that you can feel nourished and satiated by your letting go. And I'm really fortunate because I'm part of a hub of Qigong teachers called One Chi. And on this episode of Chi Time, two of my esteemed colleagues are with me here to talk about optimizing the immune system, which is important at any time of the year, but particularly as we're recording this at the beginning of January 2022, we're in the winter season. And so we are really needing to optimize our immune system a lot at the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Tim Franklin, and the amazing John Millar is with us too. You might recognize him from being on One Chi when One Chi was here on UK Health Radio. So welcome in, guys. Welcome in.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Happy New Year to you, Clara.
Happy New Year. Exactly. So here we be, chatting about optimizing the immune system. So Tim Franklin is here. He's actually recently held a webinar or course online about this, and he's presented some really clear information for you to drop into and get hold of. So Tim, let's hand over to you first. You know, what got you into deciding that sharing optimizing your immune system was absolutely spot on and where you wanted to be going at the moment?
I think when we're practicing the Qigong, we're always optimizing the immune system and our stress response systems. But it was more looking at the information on the YouTube channels around the COVID situation. And I was listening to one of the doctors, and he was saying that the best thing that you can do right now is support your immune system. Yeah. I was like, yeah, support your immune system. That's right. That's what we really need to do, is support the immune system. Why is this not out there more in terms of everyday language, everyday talk? Why is it not in the social media about how you can support your immune system more beyond the obvious things? Yes. So how can you do that in terms of a healthy mind, healthy body? How can you support your immune system in terms of stress response? How can you support your immune system in terms of quality of sleep? And it's like, wow, the Qigong has a lot of answers for that as well. And that's really drew me in. And then within a couple of days, I spoke to a colleague of mine and said, hey, how about we put on a course about supporting the immune system? And within 3 days, we were teaching a course on the immune system.
3 days.
And it didn't take long, because when all of us as Qigong teachers, when we look at what we teach, there's already a whole bunch of practical practices that you can use every day in order to help support your immune system anyway. Put that together with an understanding of how the immune system works, the connection with the mind, the connection with the body, connection with the breath, and the connection with the nervous system as well. And then you've got, Qigong answers all of that. We have these different practices to help with that. So it seemed like an obvious thing to do. It seemed like an obvious thing to do is to use our Qigong practice as a way to support a healthy immune system. I've got to say the results were really good. And the people have carried on doing the practices, and it's evolved even more from that initial course that we did.
Oh, that's great. So it was like the pebble in the water going in, like immune system, and also handing the power back to you. You know, what can you do for yourself? So let's ask John, would you like to say something about why the immune system is fascinating to you, and how we can bring our Qigong into this arena even more?
I've always been interested in the stat that they say 90% of all illness is related to stress. And I think that stat's varied. I've heard people saying 99% now, but the bottom line is that this is an immune system thing. When we get into the stress response, we're reallocating our internal energy away from the stuff that looks after us. And it's it sounds so complicated when you start to read all of the sort of information that's out there. You know, we hear all this stuff about, well, you need to strengthen your Wei Qi layer, you need to do this, you need to do that. The favorite image that I've come of it is that I've come across is the idea of taking back control of your internal pharmacy.
Oh, lovely.
And it's not difficult. It's something that everybody can do. You haven't got to have a high level of practice. You haven't got to have, you know, exceptional Kung Fu they talk about. It's something that we can share at a very easy level within Qigong. And it's something that we should be getting out there and talking about more. You know, it's very easy to hit these more popular subjects of sort of stress, anxiety and stuff like this. But the bottom line is that ultimately all of this is about reallocating your internal resources so that you can deal with what's coming at you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there's some fantastic simple things that we can do that will make a massive difference to us.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. It doesn't have to be rocket science, although it is backed up by science. I know, Tim, you were talking about how there is the psychoimmune. I can't even say it. Come on, you tell us about that stuff.
Psychoneuro immunology.
That's the one.
The simple way to think about that. I mean, sometimes these big complicated words make it sound like it's an amazing thing, but we all have it. It's the connection between the immune system and the nervous system. How well our nervous system is responding to outside and internal stimulus has a direct effect on how well your immune system is going to work. So as John said, the simple things that you can do each day in order to be a little bit more robust to the stress. That's what we're really talking about as well. It's not we need to avoid stress altogether. Stress is the most terrible thing in the world and we need to get rid of stress. Stress happens to everybody every day. And a certain level of stress can be really good. If it's too much stress, this creates an inflammation in the body. And then inflammation, too much inflammation, as in chronic inflammation, starts to damage the cells and weaken the immune system again. So it's understanding the response mechanisms that happen and how we just support that. If we can support that simply, then our body's already doing the marvelous thing that it does. I mean, it has an incredible capacity to heal itself if we don't weaken it.
Right. This point about inflammation is massive, isn't it? The all chronic illness is stemming from inflammation, and I don't think it is. I don't think we're aware of it enough as a society. We talk about, you said, about stress and anxiety, but the effects of that on our systems to inflame us. There's too much fire, too much heat, which is toxic to our system. And like you say, our body knows how to heal itself, but it does need the opportunity to do that, or the optimal arena to be able to let itself go into that mode. So we've got quite a few topics that we can speak into here, and I think maybe it would be interesting to look at this idea of what are you already doing and what's like the simple practices, and as well as, you know, why it's important to have some more formal training. So would you like to say something about that, John?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Tim and I have been chatting about is the idea of relevant practices at different parts of the day, and finding ways that, you know, if you take on a practice such as Qigong, it could be that you have your dedicated practice time. You know, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning you start your practice and you practice for 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour. But that is one aspect of the practice, and then it's how do you take that and make it something that's effective for you throughout the day, and how do you finish the day as well. And that, when you first mention it, you're like, oh, well, I'll do this form at this point, and then I'll do this form at this point, and this form at this point. I'd like to suggest that you can make it a lot simpler than that.
Yes, please do. Let's suggest making it simpler.
In the morning, I tend to be of the opinion that what we're doing is we're preparing ourselves for the day. We're energizing ourselves. We're getting all the systems working well. We're waking the body up. When we get into the day, we need to make sure that we are in a relevant response to what's going on. Nice. So as Tim has said, stress isn't a bad thing. It's the way we respond to stress that causes the problem. So if we can constantly find these little things that we can do that help us to respond more effectively, we're going to be enabling the body to come back into a state of balance, back into the space that the immune system's getting the resources it needs to. And then as a very brief sort of thing, the evening practices should be preparing us for sleep.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, Tim has got so much material in this that I don't want to speak into it too much. But what I would like to say is that the daytime practices I find particularly interesting. When we practice Qigong, we learn all kinds of subtle techniques, and subtle techniques such as, where does the breath go to? What can we do with our stance in order to just relax the body? Once the body relaxes, once the breath relaxes, the mind has got so much more opportunity to clear. But if you sit there in a tense state and you try to clear the mind, all you do is like get more and more stressed. The first thing we need to do is find these moments of relaxation. And it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, I hate to say it as a Qigong teacher, but it doesn't matter if it's not Qigong. It could be that when you go and put the kettle on, you can actually just take a moment to stop and allow yourself to relax. It could be that when you're having a conversation with somebody, you can have that brief pause where you notice your breath coming in, and you can allow those types of spaces. And these are all things that we can bring greater awareness to within the practice of Qigong. But this isn't an exclusive Qigong thing. It's just that Qigong helps to make these more effective for us.
Beautiful. And to remember that Qigong is personal energy management cultivation, and that can happen in all sorts of ways. There just happens to be a whole range of techniques and forms and disciplines behind the healing art of Qigong. So, yeah, thank you for opening that up for us, John, that, you know, when you step into the awareness of your breath and you come into self-listening, you're giving yourself back to you. And that is a really big message, you know, coming back internal inside. So Tim, would you like to add to this topic of?
Yeah, and I agree with what John has said there about the appropriate part of training each day and each parts of the day, so that you can then start applying that to your everyday life. Because there's a lot of information out there in terms of we'll come back to the stress and anxiety again for a second, that stress, anxiety, worry, all these things are terrible for you. You should avoid them. You should avoid all people who are negative. You should avoid this. And then you're like, my goodness, I'm alone again. I'm alone with my own thoughts and myself. And we know from the studies that isolation is one of the driving forces to weaken the immune system, and that we need meaningful connection. How do we get meaningful connection? Well, we get meaningful connection by bringing ourselves to the day. But to bring ourselves to the day, we need the energy. We need the energy to bring ourselves to the day. And if we read that, oh, I know about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and I've heard that the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, that's where you want to be. You want to avoid the other one. And then we misunderstand the balancing of the nervous system. And we wake up in the morning and we need the energy to get through the day. But if we go into these sleepy, deep meditative modes, we go, do you know, I feel so chilled out here. I can't even be bothered to do anything for the day because I don't have the energy. Yeah. And now I don't have the focus. And now I'm disinterested. I'm disengaged. I'm back to myself and my loneliness. And so part of the engagement and the meaningful engagement is to get the right amount of energy at the right times of the day. And our own systems are fluctuating in and out of sympathetic, parasympathetic throughout the day anyway. It's this dance. When we can time our dance through the day, we learn when is a good time to rest? When is a good time to release? When is a good time to restore? So as John was saying, we get a morning practice where we energize ourselves. Wait, we're ready for the day. We've got the energy. Yeah. We've got the mind focus, the clarity. That's what we need. The mind focus, the clarity, the energy, and the interest to do. And we need energy for that. And then with the energy management, as you said, Clara, that's really important. You use up all of that energy. What do you get? Energy depletion. So then you're back to then to a place where you've not got enough energy to do the things you want to do. So what do? Do you rest? Do you recline into collapse? Or do you re-energize yourself? And that's what John and I have been talking about, the practical things you can do during the day through movement, through mind, through breath, or a combination of these things, and through application to then use that for daily application. Then you get to the end of the day, what have you done? You've accumulated a whole bunch of stuff. Some good, some not so good. Some things
that's life.
that's it. Some things that may have energized and you've gained energy, and there might be some things that have drained your energy.
But like you say, it's this dance and it's the balance, and we are the dance between heaven and earth. We've got this balancing act going on between the yin and the yang all the time, and it's being aware of that dance and not too much of that, not too much yang, not too much yin. But would you say there is actually rather too much yang in the world? It tends to be all about action. So it's finding the right kind of energy that you're working with, not energy that you're reaching for through coffee or other stimulants, but rather this deeper, this well of energy which comes from our more formal Qigong practice and other similarly. Actually, I'm going to say there's nothing actually quite like Qigong. I must just say that. But I tell you what we do. We need to go to a track now, and then we're going to come back with John Millar and Tim Franklin from our Wan Chi community here to talk more about optimizing your immune system. But Tim has chosen us a track, and it's an old classic. But I'd love him to introduce it and just ask why he's chosen this one.
Let It Be by the Beatles. I just love this track. Let It Be. And talking about doing and being.
Exactly.
If you can just be instead of always doing, a bit more yin than the yang. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we'll be back with you after this superb track from the Beatles. Hello, you're back on Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on UK Health Radio. We're the home of Qigong on UK Health Radio. And just before those station messages, we heard that gorgeous track by the Beatles called Let It Be, encouraging us all to step out of the do and be more of the be. And I'm here with my Wan Chi colleagues, John Millar and Tim Franklin, and we're talking about optimizing our immune system from a very practical angle, as well as going into the science behind it as to, some simple ways that you can activate your immune system very naturally, very easily. You almost don't have to force it. In fact, the less you force it, the more it's going to come on board for you. Is that right?
I agree with that. You can't really force the immune system to do anything. It's going to do its thing. You can definitely weaken it, and you can definitely support it.
Right. Oh, that's a good question. So what could you suggest that maybe people don't already realize they are helping their immune system by some of their habits? What's a good habit to help your immune system?
Is habits. and it is about good habits. Obviously a good habit is to do Qigong.
Yeah, of course.
That's naturally
Meditation.
a good habit. But any type of relaxation where you are relaxing and releasing. By relaxing and releasing, you are putting that nervous system back into balance and less inflammation in the body, and you're helping the body do its own thing.
Okay, so Tim, as soon as I hear that, if people listening, what does he mean by releasing? Does it mean I've got to go to the bathroom while I'm relaxing, or what? What does this mean?
Yeah, that's true. When you go to the bathroom and you release, you get that feeling of like, oh, goodness, I've got rid of that.
Yeah, exactly.
and when you go for a nice walk, or you listen to a nice track, or you eat some nice food, or a good quality conversation with somebody, or you see a nice movie, all of those give us a feeling of release, a feeling that we've let go of something.
Oh, so it's that sort, you can feel quite contracted. In fact, most of our lives we are quite contracted, or like waiting for something to come in. But you're right, when you have a good conversation, you relax. So there's a releasing of what the tension and the expectations, and there's a softening that occurs, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a release and a relaxing of that, and there's a release of what sometimes people call the happy hormones.
Yeah. And anything to add to that, John?
Oh yeah, so many rabbit holes I want to dive down there.
Oh, pick one.
The happy hormones I think are really fascinating as well, because quite a lot of those are related to stress responses.
Right.
And yet quite often we hear of stress in the sort of distress, in the negative aspect, but the happy hormones that we're talking about can happen with what's classified as eustress or good stress. And I don't want to get into distress and eustress, but this idea that we can actually be in situations that we find challenging, and it could just be challenging is a great conversation. Actually listening to somebody, actually taking the time to be with other people can be challenging, but it can be challenging in a good way. And when we're in these states, it also means that when we finish that encounter, when we finish that space, we can become really aware of our state. We can notice that we've been challenged. We can notice that we've been in an exciting, interesting place. And then we can take the time to sit back and go, and how does that make me feel? We can take little moments like that. These are the moments when we take those that will actually start to help the body rebalance, that will help all of the internal pharmacy, all of the chemicals that are going through the body to realign so that they can reinforce the immune system. And not just the immune system, you know, we're talking about all of the background systems that exist within the body. So yeah, that's the piece that immediately springs to mind when with that.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about acknowledging the state, that which you are feeling in the moment. I think it's so easy to just rag on through one thing to another, but this now moment, which we hear about so much, but actually that is actually where it's all going on. That's the letting yourself feel, and it's okay to feel the spectrum of feelings that we have as humans, but to know that generally the feelings are energy in motion, aren't they? The emotion is that, and to not back away is one of our Jamie Cato has been on Chi Time recently, talked about leaning into whatever it is you're being presented, because if you lean into it, you meet it, it's more likely to soften and ease or show you something. Whereas if you push it away, you go into like that contraction and dismissal, and that's not going to help your whole system to be able to drop into what it needs to for your optimum health. So we're not just talking about optimizing your immune system here, are we? We're talking about optimizing your overall health, of which your immune system is an absolutely key part. Who'd like to pick up on that?
I'd like to just pick up on one thing, which, as you were talking, I remember one of my teachers talking about the bell curve of pain.
Ooh, that sounds painful.
It was on a retreat, and he'd started talking about it after writing on the board, "Pain is your true friend."
Wow.
And actually, the thing that's interesting here is that there's this idea that you travel up in your responses. The response to pain increases and increases, and then you get to a certain point within the practice, and then it decreases off the backside. Now, if we think of that in terms of our state and our emotional state, how often do we hold on to an emotion because we're still on that upward trajectory and we're going, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. But because you do that, it's always there. We don't have that opportunity to release. We don't have that opportunity to notice what's happening and then let it go. Because as we keep saying, the immune response isn't at the peak of that bell curve. It isn't when we're in full response, emotional response to something. It's once we've let it go. But in order to let it go, we need to acknowledge that it's there. And so when we get feelings of fear, when we get feelings of distress, when we get these uncomfortable things, we should be willing to embrace them and notice that they're transitory.
This feels like courage. There's a lot of courage here, isn't it, to face the fears, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. And there's been a heap load of fear put on our societies in the last couple of years. And, you know, fear depletes the immune system, doesn't it, Tim?
Fear does deplete the immune system. You're absolutely right. And as John says, in terms of fear and stress states, both of those things can help because they can help optimize us into action. So a little bit of fear isn't bad. A little bit of stress isn't bad. The stress releases the oxytocin. The oxytocin heals the heart. The oxytocin is part of the cause that pushes us, or certainly encourages us, to reach out to other people. And so there we get that further connection. So when you look at it in terms of how you respond into these things, that's part of our learning. We're all different. We've all learned to deal with things in different ways. We all have different ideas about stress or what we should do or what other people should do. And these expectations, these things that we hold on to, create part of our tensions, a part of our inflammation. When we first come into a Qigong practice, what the start of the Qigong practice invites us to do is just notice what is present in the body, and then bring our attention to the body, bring our attention to the breath. Notice how the breath is working for you. Not trying to change things to be different than they are, because sometimes life is stressful and the systems are stressful. That's what they're doing. They're trying to help us. When we tune in and we listen to what's going on in the body, and we just, if we can be with it, let it be. Yes, if we can just be with it for a moment, then we can start to notice the changes. We start to notice the releases. And then that becomes the platform where we come from. If we try and come from a place of tension, in order to release tension, you just get more resistance. And the more you resist, the more it persists. That's known. We know that. And so we need to then find another doorway in. And that's what I love about Qigong, is that Qigong helps us find these doorways into that relaxed state, so that release state, whether or not that's through breath or through movement or through mindfulness, or a combination of mind, body, energy, and breath. All of these provide a platform for change. The invitation is not to struggle against it.
Absolutely. So Tim Franklin and John Millar are here with me on Chi Time, the home of Qigong on UK Health Radio. And this is our first real session for the new year, and really coming in with some Qigong practical solutions and suggestions for optimizing your immune system and therefore your overall health. And this is such a big topic as well, isn't it? But I think one of the key things that's coming from speaking with you guys here is about people, you're already doing stuff that can help yourself. It's just noticing what it is you're already doing and letting yourself acknowledge that, be with it more, because when you notice it, where you place your mind, the energy flows. So when you're able to relax and release and be, just let yourself breathe in and be your own best friend about that, And then obviously we have some very, very useful and accessible techniques that we could share with you around the Qigong arena, of course, because this is where the three of us are all very much united. Even though we have different styles, we still have a lot in common with where we're coming from and how we're assisting you to find your Qigong, find what works for you, the tools and techniques that work for each of us that are different because we're different people, but there are some common factors. I wonder, John, would you like to speak into that a little bit? What do you think some common factors could be around this arena?
I think one of the common pieces that I'm really interested in is this release and relax. I think that quite often we can get caught in practice and we get very focused on, I need to remember what to do, I need to remember what move comes next. And we can get an intensity within the practice. And that intensity can be useful. We need to have a degree of willpower to drive us forward. But actually the piece that's helpful for us is this release and relax. We need to go through that stage of learning in order to achieve what we're trying to do. And this is, I guess this is difficult when you look at it with regard to the immune system. And the reason I say it's difficult is that if you're using Qigong in order to overcome a symptom, you can notice that the symptom decreases. If you're aiming at doing something with Qigong that's about getting rid of something, quite often you can notice it disappearing, and that builds trust in the practice, and that helps you move forward. When your practice is about boosting the immune system, the best thing that can happen to you is nothing. And that's not necessarily that motivating.
Right.
So it's when we're working with this, we need to work with it in a very relaxed way. We need to trust that it's doing us good, and then look back. And I think it's really interesting that when you talk to people who've come to classes and large groups of people sort of working together, and they're going, oh, I stopped coming to class for a couple of weeks and I started to feel really rough.
Mm.
Just sort of
Noticing it,
going,
exactly.
there's something there to notice or rejoice in the fact that it can just be easy.
Yeah.
That when it's easy, that the immune is working, you know, that we are doing ourselves a favor. We don't need to be striving for results. Sometimes
Right.
we need to enjoy just being.
Mm.
So
And
yeah.
less is in fact more, and which we could talk about a lot more moving forward. But I'm just gonna, before we close up here on Chi Time, the home of Qigong on UK Health Radio, I just noticed in the break that Tim was swigging from a blue glass bottle, one of my favourite things to do. And I'm just thinking, do you solarize that water? Do you put it in the sun?
I do sometimes, but it's not always solarized. This is one from mountain walking, where you can then put the filtration system in order to have the purer water from the impurities, a bit like our Qigong, where we're working through the impurities that we get.
Yeah, and so it brings us on to that water is one of the things that helps you to flush out the fears and anxieties, but also to keep your system healthy and hydrated. And that's part of optimizing your immune system as well, isn't it?
It is. It's really important. And in the course that we're going to be teaching, or the class we're going to be teaching, we're going to be working with the kidneys. The kidneys, of course, help with the filtration, but help eliminate a lot of the toxins. And supporting the kidneys is a huge thing within the Qigong system. And the water helps with that. And what we're looking to do is, we're not looking to boost anything. As John says, that we don't want to make the immune system boosted to the point where it's inflaming more, because that's what the immune system does. It inflames to get rid of the pathogens in the body. We want it to do its natural process. We want it to destroy the cells that are no longer in the body. We don't want it to do more of that. We want it to do that really well. And that means then that the other systems have to be working well. That's what we're really supporting. We're not supporting the inflammation. We're not supporting the destroying of the cells. We don't want to get involved in that.
No.
We don't want to get involved in that. We want to get involved with supporting the release of chronic inflammation, chronic stress, worry, tension, unnecessary tension, and so that we can manage our energy better. When we can manage our energy better, the systems work just fine.
Yeah. So many places that we could go to, and I know that you guys will come back onto Chi Time in the future. We can speak more into these fascinating topics, but it was just something that I'd like to bring up that John mentioned, was the word trust. And I think that we as Qigong teachers and practitioners, we know this arena, that when we step into it, we have a connection with our internal presence, and it doesn't freak us out mostly. But if you're new to this and you're kind of thinking, oh, I'll be on my own, what's going to happen? There's a lot of fear in there, of trepidation, or just not knowing. But I think one of the things that really helped me around all of this was when I learned to trust that the earth was beneath me and that I could feel the support of the earth. That helped me to relax my physical body, help my shoulders to drop. And now I know, from having done the practice for quite a while, is that when you do that, when you just surrender to gravity and let your body weight be felt by your feet, it feels like there's an energetic rooting that goes down naturally, that anchors us into the planet and opens these channels of discharge and receive, that I find so fascinating, that it's actually not difficult to do, because it's actually letting yourself be. And these kind of techniques we're going to be sharing with you on the 14th of January, which is not long now. So there's a few of us, I think there's about 5 or 6 of us here at One Chi, and through these conversations that we have, we're just thinking, well, we do have a wealth to share with you here. How about we do a collaborative offering? And so this is what we're going to do, isn't it? This is the plan.
Yeah, and we've spoken briefly of sort of the morning practice, the daytime practice, the evening practice, and we'll be able to take you through those sort of sequences of practice as well, so that you've got some great resources that you can work with and play, and I think most importantly enjoy.
Yes.
I think that enjoying the practice is one of the pieces that helps us to trust. It helps us to actually transform.
Trusting yourself, trusting that your system knows how to heal you, knows how to take care of you. And so if you'd like to find out more about that, come over to oneqi.org. That's oneqi.org. We will be streaming live from our One Chi channel on YouTube. And that is on Friday the 14th of January at 6:30 p.m. That's UK time. Is there anything that you'd like to just finish with, Tim? Is there something that you would like to wrap this episode of Chi Time up with regarding optimizing your immune system with Qigong?
Yeah. And that is just to be gentle and kind with yourself.
Simple. I love it. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for being here at the beginning of the year. I'm really looking forward to co-presenting with you on the 14th of January and beyond. We are considering this to be something we can offer monthly. So come along, join in with us too. We do have a Facebook page as well, One Chi, ONEQI. We'd love to continue the conversation. Do drop us questions and reflections. We're here to help you, be of service so that you can be powerful and strong and able to bring your gifts through, keep your health optimal at all times. So thank you so much for listening and watching. Keep your chi up, my friends. See you soon.